Obama backers, though. So clearly they're throwing him under the bus. They're acting like revolutionaries again. They don't want Obama to be brought up. But as you said in the Obama Deception, now out for 3 years, 30-something million views on YouTube. By the way, YouTube is trying to shut that down right now. We're under a real purge. We know they're deep in bed with these guys. And then the little YouTube, Google people all go to Bilderberg. Webster, what I'm getting at here is that we have seen this huge Occupy Wall Street push, and we see the establishment trying to basically rebrand themselves when, as you said in the Obama Deception, Obama is the maximum Wall Street puppet.
So look, you got two poles now. You can either be a slave of the Koch brothers or you can be a slave of Soros. And I say break out of that with your own demands, which would be cancel these student loans, student loan amnesty, freeze it, debt moratorium, whatever you want to say. It's about $1 trillion of high-interest debt that's now crushing the younger generation. If you want to get the campuses activated for the first time in decades, student loan amnesty. Now, we've also got, as you mentioned, Bank of America and their group, right? They're doing fraud closures. Robo-judges, robo-cops, robo-signers. Stop fraud closures. Do the Fraser-Lemke Act. This is what was actually raised in the Democratic primaries. An obligatory freeze on all foreclosures on a primary residence for 5 years or the duration of the depression.
I want to comment on this, and then I want you to continue, because I've got the full spectrum of solutions here on the show for our viewers to really think, get outside the box, and decide what they think is the best idea. If we have $16.6 trillion that we know about given, and then over 11 trillion others, we're talking 27 trillion or so here, overall handed over to foreign banks. So if it's okay to give foreign banks that sold derivatives tens of trillions of taxpayer-based, why not make the banks take a hit? As you said, they've already been paid off. All the mortgages don't amount up to the bailouts they've gotten.
Exactly.
But both good and bad. And most people aren't going to want to get rid of their mortgages. There's folks that are upside down. All of the student loans don't add up to this. So the point is, we've propped up these mega banks. You want to incentivize things. You write off people's debts. Now they're going to keep their full paycheck and actually finance grassroots business. That would get the economy going. But the finance oligarchs don't want that. They want a depressed economy so they can come in and bring in their eugenics post-industrial world.
I think that's absolutely right. And remember, the fraud closures are illegal because there's no more chain of custody of who owns these properties, right? They fed them into this big database, and they've never made the changes in the local county registry offices that they would have to make. So they come and they say, guess what? I own your house. You have to say, produce the note. And normally they can't produce the note, but there's a robo-judge and a robo-cop who are going to kick you out of your own house. If you throw an American family out on the street in a depression, you should go to Leavenworth. That's the bottom line. And I don't care about any other consideration.
Well, I mean, Webster, you predicted in Obama Deception that they would just bulldoze cities because you'd read their documents. Now they've already started to bulldoze one-third of Detroit. These are houses sitting there, but the bankers don't want to drive down housing values. They created a bubble. They don't want cheap housing. Instead of those houses going to people, they're bulldozing them, and that's the issue. They'd rather steal a house and bulldoze it than allow it to lower in price to actually house people. And so none of these neocon fake conservatives can say, oh, you're a communist, you're a socialist, because you're saying don't throw people out. You start throwing everybody out of their houses. We've already got close to 50 million on food stamps. It's going to be road warrior. It's going to be rioting. It's going to be total collapse. End all the banker bailouts and welfare and actually do take care of the people at home instead of paying with tax money to bulldoze it.
Very good, exactly. And then the other thing, of course, is how do you pay for this stuff, right? If we say we don't want austerity cuts, you look at Greece, right? The Greeks have been cutting the budget, cutting, and the deficit is getting bigger. Surprise. That's the way it works. You cut the budget, you get a bigger deficit because you're cutting down the only activity that remains.
You're giving into the banker trap that they've done in over 100 third world countries. This is a stratagem.
Now, the other key point, the attack on the Federal Reserve, which I say is the nationalization of the Federal Reserve. Right now, the Federal Reserve is run by cliques of unelected, unaccountable bankers acting in secret. It's not enough to say down with Bernanke, get somebody else, because they got 20 others, and each one of them is worse than the one before. So that gets you nowhere. It's like getting rid of Mubarak and getting Tantawi. What have you gained? Nothing. It's actually worse. Similar in Tunisia. But the Federal Reserve now, Bernanke could easily be forced to create a Main Street credit facility, right? You've been mentioning the multi-trillions, right? 25 trillion, 30 trillion, 40 trillion, we don't know, that they've given to banks since the Depression began. Why don't we get 1 trillion in a Main Street credit facility? And that goes to states and groups of states who want to do what? Rebuild their highway systems, rebuild their rail systems, build the Texas T-bone, right? Get fast rail so you can go from Austin to San Antonio and Houston and other places. Build that into a nationwide network. Build the transcontinental and coastal and down the Mississippi River.
But wait, that's socialism. We got to give 27 trill to foreign banks and then watch it disappear.
That's Abraham Lincoln. Come on, that's the Transcontinental Railroad. That's
I know. I'm being sarcastic.
That's the Erie Canal. That's everything good that's ever been done to make this place
Brooklyn
work.
Bridge.
Brooklyn Bridge, I'm not so sure. But
the point is, Webster, I'm being sarcastic. Look, the point is, do we give the bailout money to the bankers, or do we write off all their BS and invest in ourselves? Right. Obviously, your plan is better than their plan, which is total scorched earth. Now, I want to shift gears. We have, it was all over the news today. They admit global depression now. And again, you said an Obama deception. We were already in a depression 3 years ago. They've lied about it. Where are we going on the current course if the world doesn't listen to the ideas that you've put forward and others have put forward as an alternative? How do you see them? Because we're seeing calls for Obama to step down, to not run again. Where do you see all of this mess going?
Well, I'm aware of an interesting website that's in the process of being put together. It's called Primary Obama Now, and it reflects the fact that the Democratic Party seems to be pretty much brain dead in the sense that they have not yet produced a fairly prominent challenger in the Democratic primaries to Obama. And if people want to take a look at it, it's called Primary Obama Now. The urgent thing is, and even various left liberals themselves, Ralph Nader and some others have said this, there's got to be a primary challenger to Obama to stop him from running wild, because he's been selling out to Wall Street left and right. I mean, you look at...
Well, he's clearly blackmailed. He isn't acting just like a political minion or a fellow traveler. He's acting like a panicked gazelle running into tiger's jaws.
Right, but the model, therefore, is Carter, right? So Obama is going to have a very hard time getting reelected. There are reports that his strategy is based on extreme polarization, right? Including, as you say, race riots and other things.
Well, no, it's come out. They've leaked the memos that their strategy, their gambit, is racial division. My God, this goes back to what he did with his cousin, Odinga, that you wrote about and others wrote about, where he wrote the letter saying, just cause riots if you don't win the election in Kenya.
Right, so this is obviously the path that you don't want to take.
So hold on, we're almost out of time. How do you neutralize that, Webster? Well,
again, to the extent that there's this mass ferment, you look at that thing in Wisconsin in February. Now we have these marches, right? And these are spreading, right? They're going to be. There's one in Los Angeles. There's one in Boston. There are things like this starting up in many cities.
They're everywhere.
The big question is, what are they going to demand? What are they going to fight for? New York seems to be turning in on itself, right? They got these people arrested crossing the stupid Brooklyn Bridge. I don't know why they wanted to go to Brooklyn. What's in Brooklyn?
No, let me tell you the answer, Webster. That was staged. Their leaders let them out there. The cops directed them on the bridge to block it so the Soros group would get all the attention.
Right. So, and now they're at City Hall protesting that the people got arrested. So, again, what is it that you want is what people want to hear. And what you want, it's got to be something that expresses the needs of this entire society to survive. In other words, break the political power of Wall Street, make them pay for the Depression, and save the American people, their jobs, their homes, and their living standards. And the methods, I think, are pretty much some of the ones that we've said so far.
Well, regardless, Webster, it's time to reverse it. Globalism is death. Our country is falling apart. The world is falling apart. This race to the bottom, you know, these Wall Street people have been too successful. They've destroyed so much of society.
They are. And now, of course, we have to bear in mind there's a conjunctural aspect. The crisis of the European banks is now extreme, right? The news. That
was my final point. Hold on. Let me bring that up to you. Here's a document cam shot, or I can hold this up to the camera right over here if they give me that shot. David Cameron, the British Prime Minister, has come out and said, I'm not going to let England have a referendum on going under the euro. That's this banking governmental extraction fund, this receivership system. He says, I don't care if you want a referendum, 85% or more, depending on the poll. I think we should stay in the euro. And they admit the euro is now this financial dictatorship. And I've heard Bloomberg, I've seen CNBC say it's terrible that democracies in Europe don't want this bailout. We'll just have to bring in a tyranny. I mean, I hear them now openly extolling tyranny. You got the floor. 2 minutes, Webster.
Of course, the trick is that the British are not in the euro. They're working to destroy the euro, right? They want to have the British pound is supposed to be reborn like Frankenstein's monster and, you know, walk like Dracula across the world. If you look at the news of the past weekend, it's that Greece doesn't meet the austerity targets because their deficit is growing. And again, that's been the case from Brüning in Germany to Schwarzenegger in California to Papandreou in Greece. Austerity doesn't work. It means the entire program of the Republican Party in the Congress, which is more and more genocidal austerity cuts against the American people, it just doesn't work. Even in its own terms, they say, cut the budget and you'll balance the budget. You won't. You'll get a bigger deficit. So that's what Greece has now rediscovered for the 999th time. Today, the New York market was down 200 and some odd points. But if you look in the middle of that, Bank of America down significantly, I think 8%. Citibank down 8%. So what you're seeing is the second wave of the Depression and the beginning of the third wave. The second wave is the European banking crisis, and that's going to roll on. Now, I put up on my Tarpley.net website, I got a bunch of things for the things that the Europeans should not do. They should not do bailouts. But they should try to defend the euro, because if they get broken up, it's like a convoy, right? If you have a wolf pack of zombie banks attacking the euro, as long as they stay together, they have a certain chance of defending.
Well, sure, no. They're breaking up the euro to transfer it into a new pure corporate dictatorship.
Right, to break it up and basically to loot them, because the way it would work is the German mark would be driven up so high that the German export trade, which has been hanging on, would be completely destroyed, and all the other ones would be driven down into the center of the earth, and they would have hyperinflation. So it would basically destroy all of them. What they've got to do is fight the speculators, ban credit default swaps, put in that Wall Street sales tax or Tobin tax, the 1% on financial speculation. They've got to raid the offices of those credit agencies, right? There's one judge in Italy has already done it. They need to basically get those credit agencies, because they're guilty of insider trading. That was written up in the U.S. financial papers a couple of weeks ago, right? That right before the U.S. downgrade, there was a huge amount of insider trading, obviously inspired by the ratings agencies.
Of course, Webster, it's too incredible. You're absolutely right. We're going to talk to you again soon about this. Tarpley.net, Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.tv. Thank you so much for getting people to really think. But I think the final equation tonight is, don't be a useful dupe of George Soros, Al Gore, and the controlled corporate left. Wake up to what's really happening.
And let me congratulate you for the idea of having some activism, right? To do these protests, do them at the Federal Reserve branches, do them at Bank of America, find the best tactical target, but go there with some demands that will really scare them. Not just that, we want freedom and equality. Yeah, we do, but we've got to have specific ways.
I do plan to go to Bank of America, where they've been convicted of taking houses they never even had a deed on knowingly. That is actually part of our constellation, and directly the Federal Reserve this upcoming weekend and next week. Webster, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, that was certainly a spirited and interesting and quite informative discussion.